got yelled at
For what?
for walking on a mopped floor.
Was it Fragamelli?
No. I felt bad.
You know.
What do you do?
It's like Curb Your Enthusiasm. I mean, I've got to get from here to the front door.
What?
I know you just mopped, but I have to leave.
So I was thinking about it on the way down, and I'm like, in custodial services, it is one of those jobs that you pay for effort and not results. I mean, if you're in a spot that people are going to be walking, I felt bad.
When we had this time of year, like at Manistee Beverage, it's all that tile.
It's constant.
I mean, there were days where the mop bucket was black.
Yeah.
What are you going to do?
Yeah.
This episode is brought to you by Brandon Ball, broker owner of Dwelling Realty, Keller Williams, Northern Michigan. Are you looking to sell your home? Then look no further. When you list your home with Brandon Ball, you'll get a trusted advisor who will guide you through the entire selling process. With extensive knowledge of the local market, he'll help price your home competitively to attract the right buyers. And with proven marketed strategies, your home will be seen by the most qualified of buyers. With 17 years in the business, you'll have someone experienced who's on your side. Contact Brandon today to get started selling your home. 231-690-4981. That's 231-690-4981. Or Brandon at dwellingrealty.com.
I was trying to get down here. I didn't stop to address the situation, but
my temperament, I could see it all over my face. People would walk in and I'd be like,
"Hi, welcome in.
I don't even want your money. Get the fuck out of here."
You walk up with a $6 bottle of Pop-Off.
Yeah.
Is this okay?
Essentials?
I stopped at the Shell in town. I was going to get like a sparkling something with like some essence of citrus, and that's all they didn't have any of that. So there was no sparkling water.
No. That gas station hasn't changed a bit. Back in the day when I was selling for Miller, I mean, they would go through I don't know, 10, 15 cases of Milwaukee's Best 40-ounce glass a week.
Yeah.
And then, the store down the street wouldn't get any of that business.
I used to work for a gas station like that, and I would stock the beers and handle the bottles. And some of the stuff was like, you never really knew where it went, because you would come in at the end of the day. But then eventually I started working the register. Yeah. And
I feel you didn't know who was buying it.
Where was it going?
Yeah.
I don't know. I wasn't drinking it in the back.
Yeah, that's an interesting. We had an account in Idlewild, and it was called Roadrunners, and it was these two older African American ladies that owned this. You've been to Idlewild?
I've been by. Been in the region.
Yeah, I mean, there was a few businesses there that did volume, but they had a Coca-Cola merchandising cooler.
Yeah.
And it was 100% dedicated to Miller High Life 22-ounce bottles.
Okay.
And they were doing 25, 30 cases of Miller High Life 22-ounce bottles a week. Back then it was 99 cents out the door. That's tax, that's deposit. You could get a 22 High Life for 99 cents. And,
Was it seasonal?
No.
No?
I mean, that was for a few years we were running that price on those. We had the company had, a shitload of counties, and Muskegon County was one of them. We didn't sell Miller products down there. We sold Corona and shit like that, and Gallo wine. I went on a ride along with one of the salesmen down in Muskegon, in the Heights, going to a store, and this is one of those accounts that were pumping through the High Life 22. So the distributor down there, same deal, statewide pricing or whatever. I'm in there, and the truck driver's just bringing in dollies full of the shit left and right. And there was this lady, I'm sure she's a very nice lady, was back there waiting for it to get filled. I mean, because we're going through so much. That delivery was, we're filling the shelves back up.
Yeah.
And so we're up at the counter talking to the owner. He's got a Glock right in the back, and he's just fucking watching everything. And she comes up, puts a couple of bottles, and it came out to, you know, so $1.90. It should have been $1.98, and it was like $2 something. He had made a mistake. And she lost her fucking mind.
Yeah, I've seen that.
I mean, just absolutely, motherfucker, you told if there's a fuck. And she walked over to the cooler, ripped the static sticker off, and came back. Motherfucker says 99 OTD. And I was so young.
Yeah.
I looked at my guy. I'm like, what the fuck does OTD mean?
Yeah.
And he's like, out the door, but shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
That same guy was caught in a drive-by. 2 weeks later, he was on the front page of the Muskegon Chronicle.
The owner or the one that bought the
salesman I was with.
Oh.
There was a big picture on the front page of the paper. It was our Corona van, and he's hiding behind it.
Oh, he was caught in.
He was
not
caught in
doing.
it. No, he was caught in it.
Crossfire.
Yeah.
How horrible.
Ugh. Not much has changed.
You just never know.
No, you don't know.
You never know.
Who the fuck were they shooting at? And why?
I don't know.
I like our little piece of heaven up here, dude.
No, but we find, you know, there's little wrinkles. There's wrinkles. People are not okay. So, I mean, nobody's far from it. We talk about it all the time. People are not okay.
People are not okay. Say more.
Well, I just, you know, it's stressful. Everything's stressful. I say it tongue-in-cheek wise that everybody's just trying to get by, but I mean they really are. The cost of everything, and I mean I can't imagine raising a family right now, and with like how much money it takes to like just to have a kid, right? And then if you're not going to work, you know, you got to take care of your kids, which shouldn't be a burden, right? But if you want to get into daycare, right? I think the average is like $11,500 per kid is the state average right now
for daycare.
Yeah,
they're pulling that data from. Well, I mean, if it's state average, I'm about to sound stupid there for a second, but like, so Grand Rapids, it's more expensive.
I'm sure it is. Yeah.
You know, yeah,
yeah, and that's only the registered ones, you know, but. The registered ones, and you know, there's still a lot of people that take their kids to grandma's house, you know, which is good.
Yeah, grandma's house is
but
goated.
if you don't have, and then grandma might still be working, is something that it's tough out there.
Were you latchkey?
No. My mom stayed home with us while we were coming up, and I spent a lot of time with my grandparents. So we spent a lot of time baking cookies and learning about life on the farm, and you know, eventually being like the middle kid, eventually your older siblings start to have more going on, so then you're tagging along for that, so you just get wrapped up into these, you know, running errands.
I mean, well, growing up on the farm though, I mean, it's, how old were you when you were left to stay home by yourself? Or
I don't remember, which doesn't mean it was too young. Mom, she's probably going to listen to this, but
no, she should.
No, I don't know. Probably like left alone.
Yeah.
I don't know. 10 or 12 for whenever.
I think that's fine.
Yeah, but I mean, we were driving tractors at 4 or 5. Like, as long as you were smart enough to drive it. So we learned how to do it. It wasn't like, okay, you're 5 now, you have to learn how to drive the tractor, or, you know, you can stay home now that you're, like, you know, it's part of, I think, being in tune with your kids is, you know, when they're ready for that kind of thing. And then you're there to, like, make sure they get taken care of. But
I mean, I think it's a good age to start earning that responsibility.
Yeah.
You know, maybe leave for an hour or two when your kids are 10.
I think so. You know, if they know how to call 911, they know how to get a hold of you. They know how to, like, not burn the house down.
But dude, people are fucking. They get weirded out about that shit now. Did you see that thing? I don't know if it was New York, New Jersey, where the mother left to go to, I don't know if it was a doctor's appointment or something. I'm going to get that part wrong, but she had to leave the house for a few hours. And she had I believe the kid was 10, and she left him home.
Yeah.
You know, mommy's going to be gone for a little while. He left the house and, like, went downtown and was doing his own thing. And somebody noticed that there was this 10-year-old walking around. And so they called the cops, and they arrested her. She came home. They cuffed her in front of her kids and shit. And, you know, she was kind of pitching it. I would have been like, I'd have been livid. Like, first of all, don't cuff me in front of my kids. Sure. I can't believe you're going to take me to jail. I mean, this was all over the news for a while, so you must not have seen it.
I didn't see it.
And like, it was firing me up. And maybe I don't know the entire story, but the shit that they were showing on the news was very much like, I had an appointment. He's old enough to stay home by himself. And that police officer was saying, no, he's not. And I don't, it's like, so now we have like these, I mean, you're not going to leave a 4-year-old at home.
Well,
but if the kids.
Maybe there's a rule, right?
Is there?
Well,
I have no idea.
There's probably a rule of like when you can, what qualifies as neglect. And did they pick the kid up? Well, if the kid would have stayed home and watched cartoons, right? Eat a Lunchable, then it's not going to be a problem, right? Nobody's going to find out. But if the kid's walking down to 7-Eleven, right? Crossing streets and things. I don't know. It depends. Depends on the kid. Depends on where they're at.
I'm going to find out.
We were driving around Boise one time, and driving down, and we saw these two little kids walking down the side of this busy street, and one was, I don't know, maybe 5, and the other one was like maybe 3, old enough to walk, old enough to carry a backpack, and they were walking from their house to grandma's house, and you know, we just passed by, and we were all kind of like, okay, that doesn't really look right.
Yeah.
You know, what's going on with these kids? And so we stopped and asked them, and they were like, we're walking to grandma's house.
Yeah.
But you know, like, it's in that environment, right? There's all these, they're walking by all these houses. Boise's a big town. And even though it's in the suburbs, it's just, it's still a big town. It's a busy street. So we called in the non-emergency line, and, you know, there were several people that pulled over at that same time, which says a lot about, you know, where those kids are at. Somebody's watching out for these kids.
Yeah.
But I would say in that circumstance, those kids shouldn't have been walking down the street by themselves.
How old were they again, you think?
Like maybe 5 and maybe 3.
Yeah, I mean, that's...
Yeah.
So, what age are children allowed to be home alone in Michigan? Michigan does not have a specific law that sets a minimum age when a child can be left home alone. However, in Michigan, the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services and child welfare organizations recommend that children under the age of 10 should not be left home alone. So 10's acceptable, but that's a suggestion.
That's a suggestion. If you leave your 10-year-old at home and something bad happens,
it's based on the maturity and responsibility level of the child, the safety of the environment, how long the child will be alone, whether the child knows how to handle emergencies.
Yeah.
You know.
So it's probably a learning moment for the child, the parent,
yeah,
to figure out that the child didn't understand that they were supposed to stay home safe. And
yeah, so I don't know if it was New York, New Jersey, whatever. Obviously, laws can be different from state to state, but I'd be like, what the fuck? I mean, I'm pretty sure that I was 10 or younger when I was like keeping watch over my brother and sister for a while. My mom was a stay-at-home mom for a number of years when we were younger, and then she kind of went into the workforce, but it was more like a part-time situation, and so she was like kind of always home. But also, this is the point when like you and I are talking about this, or I've talked about this with other people that, you know, randomly are on the podcast about, I feel like I'm a fucking boomer because I think back sometimes and I'm like, we made it out okay.
yeah.
And now I feel like that just kids in general they're not out. doing anything.
Well, you did. I mean, there was a fair amount of kidnappings and murders going on at that time too, right? There still is. People are still being okay.
Yeah.
In the safety world, just because you get lucky 1,000 times doesn't mean you're going to get lucky the 1,001st time. So, my mom tells stories, and my grandma, when she was alive, would tell stories about sending the kids down to the corner to buy cigarettes. And,
Yeah, mine too. I bought cigarettes for my mom many times.
Yeah.
I'd have a note. I'd go to it was called Total, which is now Westco at Parkdale.
Yeah.
And I'd come down there and just give the note, and they'd grab a couple of packs of Marlboro menthols, and I'd go grab a 2-liter of Pepsi and walk home.
Yeah. Yeah. That
The good old days.
Yeah. Some good, some
good,
bad.
some bad. I don't remember the bad, to be honest with you.
I don't think we usually do remember the bad stuff. But
I don't know. But like Betsy and I always joke that like DHS is gonna swoop into our house because we let our kid just run wild outside on the property, and she's like the only one that's outside.
Yeah.
Park right down the street. We'll go down to the park. She'll play by herself the whole time. No other kids. She's got classmates in the neighborhood, but they never come out and play.
Yeah.
Play at school, or they meet someplace like the pool.
Yeah. No, I think playing outside is important. It's good for kids. They learn a lot. They learn a lot outside of the classroom, and you're starting to see it.
Well, I mean, you
Young
can
people are
appreciate
entering the workforce, which young people have always changed. I mean, I'm only one generation away from it, but you see large differences in how they interact and how the soft science part of going in every day and having a job and customer service and even employee interactions. Customer service doesn't just mean to business to customer. There's also customer service within an organization. So what are you doing for your boss? What are you doing for other departments if you work in a larger organization? So you see big differences. I think the people that are in charge of these businesses right now, large businesses, large organizations, are learning as much as millennials and like Gen Z that's coming in, and I think they're kind of adapting at the same rate.
What do you mean?
Well, you have to keep young people happy, right? It's not you absolutely do. You have to adapt for a changing workforce. It's always been happening. So whether it's like flexible work schedules, and I'm not like a LinkedIn philosopher or anything like that. You can see all these things. I heard a term, coffee punching or something like that. So basically, people are being forced back to the workplace 5 days a week. And they'll go in and punch in for the morning, grab coffee, bullshit with their coworkers, do all this stuff, right? And then they just leave early and finish up their day at home. So it's, I don't know, they're like branding it as like this like protest, but I don't really see it like that. I think the flexibility and being able to go in and have those face-to-face interactions, and not having to like communicate everything through text and email or like actions, like I think you're more productive in then being able to do that and then go home and get your nuts and bolts stuff out of the way. To me, is beneficial for the organization. To
do the nuts and bolts at the office and then go home and tighten it up. Is that what you're saying?
Well, yes.
Or vice versa.
I mean, do whatever you need to do in both spots, but I mean, give your employees the flexibility to grow and meet that requirement.
But how many of the employees do you think that are working from home are? I can't work from home.
Yeah.
I can do zero work at home, and it's not because of the kids being there. It's not because of Betsy being there. It's because when I'm in that space, it's like, all right, well, maybe first I'll reorganize my bedroom, and then after that I'll pick up the living room, and then maybe I'll clean the kitchen, and then maybe I'll do this. Maybe I'll go out in the garage and work on something real quick, and then come back in, because it's just like, that's a totally different. I know a lot of people can do it. You know, my brother-in-law, for example, has got an office at home, and he bangs out work. But I think more people are like me, where the focus on the work isn't really happening. And I just listened or read a thing. Do you know about, like, you know, the mouse widgets that move the mouse and shit?
Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
I mean,
if you have one of those and you're in an organization where your manager is tracking your productivity based on when your computer profile's active, and like Teams, or, you know, it used to be Skype, now it's like Microsoft Teams, and they're just like rolling through the list and trying to see if your tile is green or yellow or red or whatever. Personally, I think it's a bad manager, and that's not going to directly relate to productivity. Right. Unless you have a job where your business is like actually making money based off of you being active. Some people are. I mean, filling out forms, billing, whatever. But that's not my experience.
I mean, I think the really, like, the obvious part of this is that the jobs that are work from home are a very small percentage of all of the jobs that people are doing.
Yeah, I would say yes, but in a strict sense of a work from home job, it's small. But I think there's parts of pretty much every job that you can do from home. And I think in order to keep employees happy, you have to allow them that space to figure out what they can accomplish at home to make themselves happy.
Right.
But also like be productive.
Yeah.
You can't do everything from home. When I'm I travel about half the year, and I would say the amount of stuff that I can get done in person by going to one of the locations is leaps and bounds above being able to send emails or call people or whatever, because in the environment that I'm in, it's like whatever comes up first is first. So if something comes up and you reprioritize, you're in the back, you're done.
So when you're talking about like the Gen Z, and what's the one that's coming after them? There's I don't know. It'd be A something.
I don't know.
But
Generation Alpha.
Alpha.
I think.
Yeah, I think that I don't know yet. I don't know how they're going to. Usually, two generations are kind of similar. Like there's the later Gen Xers that kind of come together with the millennials, and they're more Gen X than they are millennial. And I would say that those that are in their 20s right now that are coming into the workforce, I think that there is a lot of factors that created the reason for evolving the workforce. Mm-hmm. COVID, that isolation, the rise in social media, the disconnect when they were in school, out of school, doing stuff via Zoom. I think that there was a lot of when we were talking at the beginning here about kids being able to maybe do a little bit like what we did when we were younger, or what I did when I was younger, as far as freedoms and interacting and meeting people. That's the other thing. So when you're seeing that younger group come in for job interviews, or they start working, what do you think really has changed, and how is that interaction with like the interview and then moving forward into the position? For me, I think because I just get a little in my own dome, and I'm like the crotchety old man, and I say shit like, how many breaks do you need, and how many times do you need to go on vacation, and blah blah blah, when I need you here. It seems like that generation that's coming up is requiring more than the previous generations.
I guess, like, the benchmarks are different. So, 20 years ago, if you walked in and you said, well, how much vacation do I get?
Yeah.
I think, people that are entering the workforce now, which if they're in their 20s, they may have been in the workforce for...
Or not at all.
5 or 10 years. If you got somebody who's 29 and they started working when they're 18, if. But, I mean, even if you go through, I hate to use the term standard, but if you go through a standard 4-year program, right, and you enter the workforce as a first-year engineer or business or architect or whatever, and you're 29, I mean, you could be 6 years into your career. I mean, that's not a lot of time, but that's also not nothing. So, I think that those people are thinking not in terms of like how much vacation do I have, but like how much time does it take me to do what I need to do to keep my boss happy and keep this paycheck coming in, right? And then the rest, they feel in terms, sometimes rightfully so, that the rest is up to them. So if you're going to give me, this is the mentality, right? If you're going to give me these tasks and this is what you want me to do, and it takes me 15 hours a week to do it, then like the rest of the time, like you can either give me more or I'm not going to worry about it. I'm going to go.
I don't have a problem with that. I mean, I've always been that. Like if this is what I'm hiring you to do and you get that done, then you're done.
Yeah.
That's your job. If it was more than that, then I'm paying you more than that. The responsibilities.
Yeah.
Tack onto that as part of our agreement.
Yeah.
But if I only tell you have to do this, and when it's done for the week or the whatever, then I don't need you around.
That, if you're paying them hourly, but if you're like a salary person.
Same. I agree in the same thing.
So, I mean, then if you're, and if you're in a leadership position, then you have to find more ways to not keep that person busy, but continue to, you'd want to continue to challenge them and give them more goals just to, because you're paying them. I mean, brass tacks, right? You're paying them for whatever, 40 hours a week. This is a standard agreement, 46 hours a week. So, it's your job to funnel them as you have to manage them.
No,
in an organization. I mean, we come from different business backgrounds, so.
I mean, I've worked for companies that have 100 plus employees, and I get it. Those are different though, but the same. I'm on the same lines. I mean, like if I was a salesman at one point in my life, when I was just a salesman beating the pavement, going from account to account, I had a list of accounts.
Yeah.
If I got them done, I'm done.
Yeah.
If it's 3 o'clock or if it's 5 o'clock,
Yeah. In terms of like the remoteness, and we were talking a little bit earlier about like being a student at a university now, and I was surprised to hear there's examples where students are like on campus going to college, but only have to show up in person to something like once a week. Mm-hmm. To me, when I was at Michigan Tech from 2011 to 2016. And during that time, there was some time that like you would watch the lecture ahead of time, but you're still coming to class, 3 or 5 times a week. And during that time, the expectation is you've already prepared for class and it's your time to ask questions, but your attendance was still expected. Mm-hmm. So like, now, if you look at the big picture, if you have like on-campus students and then you're just giving them all these online classes, I don't see the point of living on campus, nuts and bolts wise. Now, there are more benefits to living on campus, building that community. But I guess my window is closed on being able to be a relevant opinion on this because I've been out since 2016.
I think you have relative opinions on this, and I think that this could be like the young people that I was talking to you about earlier today. It could be specific to a program that they're in. It could be specific to the institution that they're going to. But just to talk about online classes, like for example, my daughter Helena is going to West Shore, and she can do online or in person a lot of the classes that she's already taken. She has chosen to be in person and kind of get into that, but some of the classes are like a business class is online. Yeah. And I'm like, I think all the classes really should be in person so you can have some interaction with the teacher, because the only interaction you really get with the teacher if it's online is through email, or if you can get into their schedule to talk to them in their office hours. So I find it to be a little like, what exactly, tuition's not going down, it's going up. And well, if you're just doing it all online, you should almost get a little bit of a rebate for that. Unless you're getting some kind of, because I know that a class that is one or the other, that you can either take it online or take it in person. I feel like the one that's in person would be more beneficial. You'd have an opportunity to raise your hand or have a quick sidebar before or after class with the teacher, whereas if it's online, you're just kind of stuck in the syllabus and this is what I have to read or do today. And if you have questions, then you're back on the email train. Now, one of the young people that I've talked to is their financial aid program, right? It's predicated on them living on campus.
Yeah.
Regardless of how the format for education is going with them. And they're doing 95% all online with one class once a week that they've got to show up to.
Yeah.
So they're forced to be there when they could just do it at home if it's all going to be online. But in doing it that way, if you don't have the wherewithal to go out and interact, and you're just kind of in an island to yourself and losing what I think, and I think you would agree with. I went to college for a semester, wasn't for me, went into the military. But I think you would agree with me in that if you're going to go to college, the experience and the immersion into that culture is just as important as the education you're going to get, depending on your background.
Yeah. At the beginning, it's just as, and then later in life, I think you find that it's more important. The immersion is more important, in that community you build is more important than learning Calc 2. And there's plenty of people that use Calc 2 every day. I'm not one of them. But, I guess suffering through that and struggling and getting through it and being at a point where, you're laying on your futon in your dorm room wondering if you're going to come back the next semester, right? And then, like, your roommate and your RA, resident assistant, both, like, check in on you and be like, hey, what's going on? And you're like, well, I'm failing Calc 2. And they're like, well, if you're gonna keep going, you have to pass it somehow. And so you figure that out. And so, like, that struggle and perseverance at Tech, they call it tenacity, is one of the community buzzwords. But no, I think universities now in financial aid packages, if they're requiring a student to be on campus, but there's no on-campus element, then that's BS, because you have an obligation as a university to teach these kids. That's what they're paying for, ultimately. And whether they're in a financial aid package or they're paying out of pocket or taking loans, you're selling them that service and giving them that training. And I think that they have to adapt, so that if you have instances where a student's coming on and they're spending 95% of their college experience online, then somebody's got to check in on them, or there has to be incentives for them to get out and get about, because that's the only reason that I finished at Michigan Tech, was the community. If I would have been at home taking Calc 2 classes and getting a D- and hating everything about it, I would have just quit. And who knows what would have happened after that, but I didn't, and here I am now. And I always advocate any student that if you're at that low point, that it's not an impossible task. This isn't they don't present things, them being the university or your teachers or professors, with the intent that you're not going to be able to do it. You can do it. You just have to figure out if you're going to do it. So I covered a lot of bases there, but the community side of going to university, going to college, is important. And you're going to find that community aspect in every direction that you go to. If you go straight into the trades, you go into the military, you go into the university, you stay at home and live on the farm, there's going to be some kind of community that you can't, we're not made to do it alone. So
you grew up in a small town on a farm, and then you went up to Michigan Tech, which, it's in the UP. It's a small community, but the college itself has a pretty large student body. It's a big school.
Yeah.
First of all, how was that, going from small town Michigan all the way up there? And then you've got a really bright light. To me, you do. I mean, we've been friends for a while now, and
thanks, James.
You're very outgoing. You really try to, bring yourself in to the community. But being 18 years old, from the thumb, moving up there, you're all by yourself. You're hours and hours and hours away from home. What did it take for you to be? I mean, you were, I want to say hall monitor, but that's not.
I was an RA.
You were an RA,
yeah.
But that took a couple of years, yeah.
2 years. 2 years.
Because when you talk about your experience there, it sounds like it was so much fun.
Yeah. So I want to start with a line from comedian John Oliver when he went up and did a show up at Michigan Tech as part of the university welcome comedy series, and there's a clip out there, and when he's reflecting on his time up in Houghton, where Michigan Tech is, he goes, it's the most unsupervised group of kids in the world. And obviously it's a joke, but you're from southeast Michigan up to Michigan Tech is 9.5 hour drive, and that's in good conditions. I mean, there was times when I was driving back and forth there, it might take 12 or 14 hours because the roads are so bad. And so you are isolated in that sense, where you can't just run home for a weekend and hang out with your buddies in the basement, right? You are really out there, and it's not one of those things where you're like, well, it's sink or swim, kid. You're either gonna figure it out or you can fucking fail. But you're up there. You're not gonna go home for a weekend. I did it once. It was horrible because I spent 20 hours in the car and 20 hours at home.
Right.
But so Michigan Tech had a requirement that everybody lives on campus the first year. These big dorm rooms. Wadsworth Hall is a quarter mile long, so you got I can't remember how many kids, 2,000 some kids living in one building, right? It's
Pretty quiet.
big building. And you have a roommate, and you're in this space. I can't remember what size they are, but you are in that space with a roommate, and then you're divided into sets of rooms called what the hell did we call them? Houses. Call them houses. And so like 20 rooms, 40 guys. Most of the
Mostly sausage everywhere.
Mostly dudes up there. But they did have co-ed halls, and they had all girl halls. But I was in a hall with 40 other guys, and I went up there with my buddy. 4 of us from the class of 2011 went up there from Emily City, and him and I were roommates, and it went pretty good. But it was we got up there, and it was like, first you're like thick as thieves, right? You just really tight, everything you're doing the same, and then eventually you start to see like deviations, like people go off and they meet other people, and they start to get other interests. They're doing different things on the weekends. You might rush a fraternity. You might do intramural soccer instead of band. But there was all of that to really immerse yourself in and start to like define yourself after high school, where most of us, and I would say, a lot of people, right? You're with the same group of people from kindergarten until senior year. And if you go to a small town like I did, these people.
Yeah.
They're familiar, And so then you go and you immersed in this population of whatever, 8,000 undergrads. I can't remember how much it was. And you're meeting all these new people, and, so then you're up there for a week, and you get assigned to these little orientation pods. This is 2011, right? I don't know what they're doing now. But you get assigned to these orientation groups of like 30 people, and most of the time they were based on your major. So like 30 environmental engineers. And then you go through this orientation week where you walk through all your department buildings. You end up all over campus. That's when they do a comedy show. Like one of the nights they have time downtown Houghton for you to like go down and learn about town that you're going to be living in. And this all happens after move-in day. And move-in day, you can move in, you move in the weekend before or whatever. So like you pile everything in, and then you show up to Michigan Tech, and like you go down and get your key at we got the keys at the Rose Center, and they were just like, yep, here's your key. This is where your room is at. This is where you should park. And so me, my mom, my dad, in the van, and then I had a car up there. And so we stop, and then like there's like fucking 10 or 12 people in yellow shirts, and they're like just like on the car, because there's not a lot of spots. There's like 2,000 people moving in, and there's not a lot of spots to park. So like they have helpers, the Michigan Tech welcome crew.
Come and get your shit for you.
And it was like 2 trips, and everybody grabs, like, you don't know who these people are. They're just like, hey, welcome, what room are you in? And then they like empty your car. Like they were pulling stuff out that wasn't like supposed to go. So it's like my mom was like, where'd my purse go? And it was in the room. But so like that's the first kind of like point that you're really like dumped into it, and you feel like welcomed. After that, after orientation week, like classes start, and it's like it's high octane. It's a whirlwind. I mean, when I was in high school, I was just like, it was in regular classes. Like
Yeah.
I took 2 AP classes, and neither one of them I got any credit in. So like, there's kids graduating with 20, 30 credits.
Yeah.
And but so like I got, you get thrown into this college pace, and nobody really prepared me for that. I mean, I had a couple teachers that were like, it's gonna be harder in college, and like prepare to be. But then once you're in it, and like 5 days a week, you really like, it's fast. It's really fast paced. You're covering material in like 14 weeks that you would spend a whole academic year on. But those being immersed in that community in the dorm rooms, the residence halls, really you meet new people. Like I can remember meeting my buddy Chris. You've met Chris before.
Mm-hmm. Chris, good shit.
And
shout out to Chris.
Me and Jeff, my first year roommate, we were in our room, and then like Chris and his roommate Matt came in, and they were like, "Hey, we're just welcoming people." Jeff and I are like overwhelmed, like unpacking our shit, and Chris just has like a candy bowl, and he's just like handing out candy, and got to know Chris, and ended up rooming with Chris the second year. But so mixing in that first year, those first year students, and Chris was returning, so you had first years and second years and sometimes third and fourth years all living under the same roof. And so like you get these you get these traditions that get passed on, like going out to there's a sunken seaway dredge called the Dredge out east of Tech in Dollar Bay. And so like it's like everybody just gets together, you go out and you look at this big piece of rusted metal laying in the lake. It's all graffiti, and it's like, hey, want to climb on it? And then you're not supposed to climb on it. It's very dangerous, but we did. So, you just explore the Keweenaw, and then you form these relationships through that, and then like finals week comes, and everybody's studying for finals, and it's shitty. You're studying for things, you're worried about you're going to pass, but you're doing it together with people, and eating ramen noodles and staying up till 4 a.m. and
some of the pictures that you drop every now and then, your tagline
way back when, yeah,
where are they now? Yeah, that shit's pretty funny.
So that's really like chapter that's like one chapter at Tech, many chapters, but like one kind of volume. And then so like I come to Manistee as a co-op, and spend 15 months away from Tech. And so it happens, everybody else goes back for that next school year. So then they kind of deviate, and then you still know them when you go back, but they're now a year ahead of you. And so then you're kind of like flushed back into a whole nother
so wait a minute, did I hear that?
Did
I hear that right or wrong? You were at Tech, then you came here and did a co-op, and then went back to Tech?
Yeah, so 2 years at Tech, and year 2 was when I bottomed in. I would say my mental health, battling Calc 2, where I thought I was going to fail and quit and never come back again. And then I got a co-op here in Manistee, and then lived here for 15 months. And
fell in love with Manistee.
Yeah. And then I went back to Tech for my 3rd and 4th year, junior, senior year, and I went back as an RA. And that was like really, I think, when everything, all the good parts about being a first and second year where you're like immersed in this community get amplified when you're an RA. For some people. Some people don't like the added responsibility and pressure, and sometimes it gets to people. There's good RAs and there's bad RAs, and there's good RAs on paper and bad RAs on paper. But I went back, and then so as an RA, you show up 2 weeks before the semester, and you train with all your fellow RAs. I don't know how many there was, probably 100 RAs, and you get immersed kind of into the university system as an employee. So you're like a live-in employee, And I kind of refer to it as like the primary resource to students on behalf of the university. So like as an RA, like my residents would come and they'd be like, how do I work the washing machine? And so like some of the lighthearted things, or, you might have to say like, hey dude, you kind of smell bad. Or like your room stinks. People are talking. Like, let's figure out why your room stinks. So you sort of end up like, you almost act like not a parent, but definitely like a mentor, because as an RA, you're an upperclassman, and then most of the people living in the residence halls are underclassmen. So you end up first and second year. So where I was at during orientation week and just getting out of high school, now you were mentoring, and you're the people that show up in the yellow shirts and welcome people into the community. So you see it on both sides, but from each side of the curtain. But like, so I had two sets of residents, 22 rooms. So I have 44 residents or something like that. And like I've been to weddings, like and now 6 or 7 years after graduating, like they're getting married. A lot of them are having kids. They're changing careers. So you've gotten to know those people through those experiences on campus, and like going to class with some of them, but most of them is just what happens outside of class.
So when you talked about the role, and it's kind of like a mentorship, have you thought about mentoring now that you're older? And
not in like a formal sense, no.
I think you'd be good at it.
I don't really know where. To me, like, consistency is key in that kind of thing, and I'm with everything else that I have going on.
I think sometimes a mentor is, it's not so much of being right next to the person as much as possible. Sometimes it's like probably a phone call or a text, or maybe exchanging like an idea or a book or something like that. And kind of, I think that's one thing that we're lacking today, especially for young men, is mentors. And, father-son stuff is one thing, but, I think I look back and some of the men in my life that really helped shape me and guide me, it was invaluable.
Yeah.
And whether or not they knew it at the time that they were mentoring me, or whether or not I knew that they were, that's kind of what the relationship was. You figure that out when you get older, maybe. It doesn't have to be like a, hey, I think I should mentor you kind of thing. It's just like you kind of attach yourself to, a young person that you can see with a little bit of this, they can do something really cool because they're lacking that in their life,
Yeah, and I mean, I understand, because I also have like one-off experiences and just like what always seems like minor and inconsequential can just be one of those like what do they call it, like a key moment or in somebody's life. And the moment that I think of and why I will always appreciate the fact that I was an RA and that I had an RA and was in that community is because the night that I was on the futon sitting here like wondering if I was going to fail, right? Like I had my roommate and then my RA, and they were just like, listen, dude, it's going to be fine. Like it's, at the time, like you're feeling like this immense pressure, right, to try and get through it because you're in year 2, right? And you all of the financial implications are presented,
right? And
like I didn't come from a lot of money, and the opportunities I had to be at Tech, like this was the shot. There was not like there wasn't going to be another opportunity like that. So like having that moment, and I think about it now to like tie into if students are spending most of their time online and not developing that community, how many of them are getting to that? Because it's a minor moment. Like getting a D- in Calc 2 hasn't made me less of who I am now, right? But you get the fuck through it, and then you move on. But somebody's got to tell you in that moment. Otherwise, you're just going to throw your hands up and quit. And then it's not the end of the world, but you have to get through that. You have to have people around you that are going to help you through that. So that's why I worry about the on-campus experience.
Yeah, I mean, I just think it's like I said, from who I'm talking to, it could be that particular school, but I've talked to a few young people that are going to other schools, and it's virtually the same thing. And a lot of that came from when we shut everything down, and it just seemed easier to continue this online deal. I think West Shore is leaning more and more towards the virtual, and I think that's a big detriment, not only to our community, but I mean, if that's kind of the model that these other schools are going towards, it just doesn't make any sense. It certainly doesn't make any sense to go there and live there unless there is.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it was great what you said, where they brought, you were in a group of 30 people, you're all in the same program, you just met 30 people that are going to be going through the same shit that you're going through for the next 4 years or whatever. Yeah. I mean, what a great opportunity to meet new people. Mm-hmm. And there was like you said, this big gathering, and we're going to help you out, we're going to move you through it. I don't think every school does that.
No, I mean, it's I don't have a ton against other universities, but I definitely have a lot to say positively about Michigan Tech.
Yeah, I mean, when you have a great experience like that, how could you be negative about it?
Yeah. I lost my train
of thought. That's okay. I brought up some things that I wanted to. These are statistics. Go ahead.
Sorry. So the thing that I was thinking about when you were talking about that is they have the data. Every year they have dropout rates, they have retention rates, they have who transfers out, who ultimately graduates. It would be interesting to see that data compared to how much classroom is virtual, how much interaction is virtual.
That's a good point.
They have that data.
It's somewhere.
And it's probably available if we spend some time.
I mean, but we all know that the averages are more people drop than stay in school. I think that's kind of the more people, the percentage is higher those that don't finish than those that do finish.
Yeah.
Whether that's even if you're just taking a break and then you come back, or you maybe later in life you go back to school just to finish up your degree.
Yeah.
But initially, the freshman, sophomore, more are dropping than more are staying.
Yeah.
But I was doing some research this morning, preparing for this, and I brought up a few things here. I'm just going to read you these. It was like, looking for like what are the top 5 issues facing young men in their 20s. And the first one is educational disengagement. Young men are increasingly detached from educational pursuits, leading to lower college enrollment and graduation rates compared to their female counterparts. The educational gap limits their future employment and opportunities for economic mobility. Does that resonate at all?
Yeah. I would say like getting into a manufacturing environment. When I was coming up, it was like you're gonna go to this 4-year degree and get a higher education, or you'd be in the trades, and like you don't really want to be in the trades, do you? It wasn't that.
Oh, that was exactly what it was.
Edgy.
Me coming up, it was like, listen, you've got 2 options. You need to go to college, get a degree so you can get a good, high-earning job, or else you're going to be forced to do plumbing, electrical, carpentry. They made it sound like those jobs were lower in
Yeah.
status.
Yeah.
When in reality, those jobs today are the ones that are the highest earning. You know.
Well, especially right off the gate. I mean, if you can go into a trade school and learn and sign in with a trade union, go through apprenticeship, become a journeyman, get your licensing, get the knowledge. I mean, you are incredibly valuable compared to sitting in a university for 4 years and learning about Calc 2 that you're never going to use again. And so I guess when you say disengaging from the educational, or however you phrase it, like I would just, after you have to be developing and learning something, whether it's skills you're going to use to be an engineer, an architect, some kind of scientist, or learning how to properly plumb a house. I mean, all those skills are incredibly important.
I think what this is saying is that not only is it there's an increasing detachment for educational pursuits, there's also an increasing detachment for kind of progressing towards your future.
Yeah.
Figuring it out. And it was I feel like we were kind of raised the same way. I don't know if good, bad, or indifferent, in that, hey man, you got to figure this out. Like I can't figure it out for you.
Mm-hmm.
I can tell you and give you my opinion and say this is what you should do, but that's only me.
Yeah.
That's what I would do.
Yeah.
But now I think there's a lot of hand holding going on in the younger ages, and then not to keep going back, but a lot of things from that if you were 14 years old and COVID hit, everything is completely turned on its head, and it translates. It's where these issues are rolling into those that are in college or getting into the workforce now, and and I'm really focused on the young men, because what I'm seeing is, when I'm reading and when I'm watching, it's a lot of they are the ones that are really struggling. They're lacking in masculinity. They're lacking in strong male figures around them, which is why I was talking about mentoring. They really need to have that strong desire to be a man. Mm-hmm. And I think that's important. And I'm getting better at trying to explain my opinion on this and what I'm trying to say, but being a man is a lot more than just the way your physiology is. You know what I mean? There's a lot that is important for your mental growth. Moving on and finding a high value mate, and going through the workforce, getting married, having kids. There's a gap there now.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of reasons. There's a lot of reasons I think that you can tell yourself or explain to yourself that something is impossible, or you're not doing a good job, or you don't belong somewhere, or you're never going to get through something. I mean, you have to. I think it's important that you surround yourself with people that are not only telling you that you can do something, accomplish something, better yourself, but also they're doing it, and it's not like a formal thing. It's sort of, I learned a lot just by watching the people around me growing up, spending time with my dad, my grandpa, grandparents, my mom and dad, better or worse, my siblings. You learn a lot by being around people, and if you filter that all through Instagram, TikTok, and I'm not going to put on my boomer hat and just say that like the technology is ruining kids or people or their self-esteem, but that it in a lot of ways is taking away. It's taking away from going out with a group of people and building a snow fort or an ice statue at Winter Carnival at Michigan Tech. You can't, sending a bunch of memes is not that. It's something else. There's benefits to having community online, but it is not replacing, I don't believe, replacing that physical presence
Right.
and being around.
I think it's
Positive.
replacing it. You know, there's a whole generation that's just come up that got an iPad when they were in kindergarten and grew into the social media and gaming and all of that, and it's taken away. I mean, I know people that are just like, their friends are who they snap
Yeah.
or want, hey, I see on the whatever, the snap
Yeah.
map or whatever, like, what, you know,
Yeah.
it's all just pictures and text.
Yeah. I mean, I'm guilty of it. I send stuff to people all the time when I should just pick up.
So do I.
Pick
I
up the
mean,
phone and talk to them.
My Instagram search is horrific because of the shit that we send to each other.
Let's not go there. What's next on the list?
But to speak to that, I'm going to skip one, and we'll come back to it here in a second. But mental health challenges. There's a notable increase in mental health issues among young men, including higher rates of depression, loneliness, and suicide. Social expectations and lack of supportive networks often prevent them from seeking help, worsening their problems. And I think that goes into like the isolation, especially if you're just playing games.
I got more life advice and camaraderie smoking hookah on the loading dock behind Wadsworth Hall than any amount that you're ever going to get via text or virtual interactions. So I like resources. There's resources that you can call. You can call a helpline. You can go online and get therapy. That stuff I don't think has ever been more in reach, but you have to have those interactions and those meaningful conversations and relationships with people that you respect enough that if you go off and say something crazy, or because you have it rattling around in your head, that they're not going to be like, well, we can't be friends anymore, or
Yeah.
I'm going to call your mom and tell you I'm worried about you, or something like that. So those resources, I think, are just as important as the professional resources. As a non educated
Yeah.
in the psychology and therapy.
Well, I think a good friend group, a peer group, can go a long ways. Just like you said, smoking hookah with your friends.
Yeah.
Where
are they now?
Where are they now?
Popcorn lung.
But those are the people that, first of all, they're going to know if something's amiss.
Yeah.
And they're definitely going to say something to you if they're good friends. But sometimes the people that you surround yourself with aren't good people.
True. But
then
you gotta. That's part of that network, though. Is like you weed that stuff out. You got.
That's a muscle you got to work, though.
Yeah.
My whole life it's.
There's guardrails.
Yeah.
That's when Dad's got to step in.
Yeah, you got to prune.
Yeah.
You got to. I'm not gonna hang with you anymore, or whatever, because you're going down a path that I don't want to go down, or whatever. Or you're not helping. But social isolation, then. A growing number of young men experience social disconnection with fewer close friendships and romantic relationships. The isolation can lead to negative behaviors and involvement in harmful online communities that promote misogyny and extremism.
Yeah, well,
That's a deep one,
there's lots of examples of that. I think it goes back to finding reasons to do things together, watching a football game together, going out to eat. When's the last time you saw a group of guys go out bowling? It's those kinds of things.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways, prevent what you're talking about, going into that deep. What are they called? Incel mindset.
Yeah.
It's just, you can't, we're too toxic to be alone.
We are too toxic to be alone, to be honest with you. But I mean, if you really take a look at that, what I just read, and when it talks about, I mean, the extremism is probably more on the extreme end. But misogyny, I can see that, if you're just watching Andrew Tate all day long, or, you're not getting a true, that's to go back to being a mentor. It's like when you're a young man, one of the things that you want, especially in your 20s, is you want to be with a female. You want to be with, you might want to be with a bunch of them, right? But
yeah,
it's when you don't know what to do, and you're afraid to ask a girl on a date, or you don't know how to talk to them, and all you're getting is this, the shit online, and all these winners out there. And
I think you gotta encourage people to be aware of, like, to use the example Andrew Tate. I don't watch the guy. From what I understand, he's not benefiting from improving people's lives.
Right.
He's benefiting from the clicks, from the watch, from the ads, and like this persona. I don't think that that's something that people should aspire to be. I mean, to me, you should aspire to be the guy that's like got his bills paid, that can be generous, that people will call you to help move, that you're gonna stop and watch out for people. So to me, the only way you fight that is encourage people to be aware of why Andrew Tate is the way he is. It's not because it's a good way to live. It's because he's making a shitload of money being a douchebag.
He's probably doing all right being a douchebag. Lack of purpose and direction. Without clear goals or role models, young men struggle to find direction in life. This lack of purpose can result in disengagement from society, increased substance abuse, and lean towards radical ideologies.
Goal setting comes right back out of that, where your community is, and talking about what you want. Part of that, goals don't just like pop into your head. They get developed. And you break them down, and you say, well, this is what I would like to see. And then people ask you questions. Why do you want to see it that way? What if you saw it this way? I'm being vague there, but most of the things that I'm aspiring for are not the same things that I cared about when I was 10 or 18 or even 25. I mean, those are in my, like, where I'm at now is just I'm a completely different person. So you have to change those things and develop them. They don't just happen. You're not going to read it or see something online and be like, well, I just want to go to an F1 race. It's like, okay, then what? What are you going to do when you get there? Why do you want to go? Who are you excited to see? But you develop that stuff in person and with your community.
Yeah, like I was telling my son yesterday, that you and I want to go to Texas, go to Austin, and go to the mothership.
Yeah,
and I'm like,
fun.
That would be great. I mean, that's kind of off a little tangent there, but along the same line, what else are we going to do when we get there? But also, who do we want to see? And we got to make that happen.
We should.
We got to figure that out and make that trip happen. Which one did I skip? Well, we'll do this one real quick, and we'll kind of wrap this up. Economic instability. Many young men face financial insecurity due to stagnant wages and lack of marketable skills, the decline in traditionally male-dominant industries, and the rising cost of living exacerbates the instability, hindering their ability to achieve financial independence.
I can't tell you. I guess you have to. That is like a roller coaster. You're not always going to be going up.
Yeah.
Sometimes you're going to drop. It's going to go up and down. But you got to know and have the wherewithal that like it will change. It will get better. If you can, here's things that you can control. Here's things that you can't control. One of those things is you can't control what's going to happen in the world.
Right.
You can only control how you're going to react and how you prepare. So this idea of like financial security is kind of crazy when you're young, right?
Yeah,
There's so
you
much
don't see it.
stuff that could happen. You can get sick. I know people that have gotten cancer young, or people like gotten car accidents. I know people gotten pregnant young. Those kinds of things. Like there's no such thing really as security. So like learn to embrace the potential. I guess if you were like to try and spin it, and I know like Les hates it when we do that, but if you were to like spin it into a positive light, like learn to embrace that potential and those opportunities that come along.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely something in like learning to embrace, but I do think that you can give yourself a hand up if you do something, if you really can try. I mean, as a young person, I spent more than I had. The older that I've aged and the more that I've saved and changed, it's been a huge benefit to try to explain that to a younger person. Like, I was having a conversation with my son the other day when we were trying to set some goals, and he was asking for my help on that. And I said, well, one of them is getting your money right. Now, he doesn't have any bills to speak of, and he's got a pretty decent amount of savings. And he was like, what do you mean get my money right? And I'm like, well, at some point you're going to want to move out, and you're going to want to get a place of your own. It's going to be $1,000 a month, and that doesn't include
just for rent.
Yeah, that doesn't include utilities or anything like that. So, and you're going to have first and last and security. So you're looking at $2,500 before you even walk in the door, and then you're going to have all the bills associated with it before you even start putting food in the refrigerator and in the cupboards. So, what does that look like? I mean, you're at this level now, so how much money do you want to have on top of that the next 12 months, 24 months?
Yeah.
And get yourself, like his vehicle, for example, eventually that's going to have to be traded up. So that's a cost. You're a man now, you're 21. So what are we looking at? What are you looking at? And then how do you achieve that? So if your paycheck is X, how much of that can you save every week or 2 weeks? It's very easy to say, but these are conversations that I never had when I was a young man with anybody. I just had to figure it out.
Yeah, I would say I'm in that camp as well.
Most people are.
Absolutely. The financial literacy in the country is horrible, but I definitely am in agreement. You can't control the future, but like I said, you can control how you prepare for that. So part of that is having basic understanding of how money works. Set up a budget. Don't spend every dollar you make. Doing those 3 things, I think you'd be ahead of half the people in this country. So.
Yeah, I laugh because like when I was in the Air Force, I literally had nothing to spend my money on, but was broke all the time.
Yeah.
And, dorms, right? Even in my first base duty, I lived in the dorms. It was free. I didn't, I could have done base housing, but why? I could just live in the dorms. It's free. But, everybody got the biggest TV that they could get. Everybody got the gaming system. Everybody, you're just, buying a 30-pack a day because you were partying all the time.
Yeah.
Always eating out.
Yep.
And there's no money.
Yeah. Which
is fucking nuts because even when you go in as like an E1 or E2, you're still pulling down $900 a week. Yeah. I could get cigarettes for 89 cents at the BX. Mm-hmm. But it was just poof.
Yeah.
Gone.
Now, I think, the financial literacy side of things, we really have to incorporate that in the education system.
I feel like it should. If everything else has to evolve, right? If you have to evolve as a leader and manager of people, because your new team coming in is different than the last, then the education system should evolve.
Yeah.
And we're still in this archaic design.
Yeah.
That isn't. If anything, it's going backwards because they're getting rid of more and more of the specialty, wood shop, electrical tech,
Yeah. We could talk We could talk for another hour on education.
Maybe we'll save that for the next episode. We'll just do Dyllan's return, education.
He's back.
Just hammer that one home. Yeah, it's messy. I don't know if we solved anything today, but I will say that there is shit that needs to be done. And
I think walking out of this conversation, a big point. Not that we have to like summarize it, but think about your community and where you're at, and then how you might bring somebody into it and help them. I think is what we talked about today is how do you get somebody into your circle to help them succeed.
Yeah, or just help. Don't be a bystander, because if you don't like the way it's going, you got to help that next generation. I think a lot of people, if I'm going to summarize the end of this, I think a lot of people are more concerned about themselves and where they're going to be at the end than they are leaving a lasting impact to improve what they leave behind.
On that note, one of the things I've embraced is the fact that like nobody's going to remember you.
Nobody.
Eventually, a few generations.
I'm 100%.
A lot of people say that, but it really changes the way that you kind of think about like what you're doing, and
nobody cares. People care that around you now, but nobody is going to care. 100 years from now, nobody's going to know your name.
Yeah.
If there was a statue built for you 200 years from now, a group of assholes would probably want to take it down.
They may. That's another topic.
If we go long enough, we could say wild shit and nobody's going to hear it. Your mom will, though.
My mom will.
Let's go have some lunch.
Sounds good. Thanks.